And it's Wednesday again, another day when I can make money simply by talking about this topic. The truth is that this chapter had many changes, some positive, some negative, and one or two consistent alterations. Surprisingly, there were no translation problems on Crunchyroll. However, I suppose the fandom enjoyed the frame of Emilia's massive buttocks, whilst I personally like the fight between Regulus and Reinhard, despite the fact that this adaptation removed far too many stuff. I mention all of this as someone who has read the entire universe of this novel, but let us get started. The truth is that this scene was faithful, yet not entirely, but there were some adjustments that added or detracted value depending on the viewer's perspective. From my perspective, Capella's traumatization of Felix was effective, but I believe it could have been done better, just like in the novel. There, it is stated how she humiliates Felix for an extended period of time, making him feel useless for staying behind and not fighting alongside the other knights. On the other hand, in the anime, she only converted into Crush after Felix stabbed her, although in the novel, Capella morphed into her much earlier and pushed Felix to stab her under the guise of vengeance. Capella did all of this to put additional mental strain on him. In any case, Felix ends up stabbing her, and the outcome is identical to the anime, although for different reasons. I also expected them to provide an excerpt from the novel, which would have made for an excellent meme. I am referring to Capella's comments regarding Felix's body. She claims she likes the healer because she believes he maintains his appearance in order to exploit men's sexuality. Then she recounts Felix's realization that males lower their guard when dealing with attractive women. As a result, Capella assumes that Felix's cross-dressing is an attempt to deceive men. Obviously, Felix denies it and tells her to shut up while demanding a method to heal Crush. But when the Archbishop grows bored of him and immobilizes him, she asks Felix if he wants her to transform him into a purely biological girl. She also informs him that she can remove or add any body part he wants. Essentially, she gave him the choice between becoming a biological woman or a hermaphrodite. Anyway, the reality about the scene with Anna and Capella is that nearly nothing significant was left out. One or two of Anastasia's thoughts were removed, but I don't believe it's a big concern because it was simply Anna discussing why and how she constructed the entire scenario for the City Hall defense. The fact is that, while Anastasia appears to be strong, I regret to inform you that this is only transitory and has a lot to do with the secrets that Prisca accused the candidate of hiding. I would like to add something interesting about Al's appearance, but even in the novel, he did not say much in this part, and that is because he is only going to start having dialogues from this moment onward. Personally, I'm looking forward to seeing his forthcoming dialogues because, believe it or not, the way the anime adapts what happens next could help clarify some of the riddles that are now developing in the current web novel. It is no secret that Aldebaran is hiding something, and the fact that he, like Subaru, was teleported leads people to believe that he possesses power. In his next appearance, we'll see how they represent his might. But let's go on to the next section. The reality is that I believe this scene had few alterations. That is, while there were some, they did not hinder significantly from the plot, as opposed to the next scene with Subaru and Regulus. However, in this scene with Prisca, the bit when Liliana questions the Archbishop about Kiritaka's status was removed. Another section was removed in which Sirius says how beneficial the gospel is, and how it was owing to this book that they were able to predict the killings of the 10 leaders. Remember that the anime so far implies that someone has been working behind the scenes to accomplish these tasks. The truth is that a considerable portion of Prisca and Sirius exchanges were preserved. For the most part, they only cut scenes involving Liliana. For example, they removed various lesbian conversations from the singer, such as when she states that because Priscilla kissed her, the princess should accept responsibility for stealing her first kiss, or when Liliana admits that her pulse beats very rapidly when she sees Prisca. I believe they cut this to escape censorship in the Chinese market. When Sirius's controlled citizenry come, Liliana is horrified to discover that her eyes, before Prisca kisses her, were the same as Sirius's other victims. To round off the trivialities of this scene, they removed the line in which Priscilla stated that she could not attack Sirius in order to kill him, because doing so would result in the same destiny for everyone around her. But the most intriguing element, which hints at a possible 5th season of ReZero, is Sirius's mention of the story of Iris and the King of Thorns. You see, This is a highly important narrative that belongs to the Re-Zero world's folklore. And much as we hear stories about Little Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel, this one illustrates something similar. However, Priscilla becomes enraged when someone she despises mentions this anecdote. It's unfortunate that anime fans will have to wait 2 seasons to discover out what this subplot comprises, but I promise that the wait will be worthwhile. If you don't mind knowing what happens, I'll provide a spoiler in the comments on why Prisca is angry. Let's go on to the final scene of the show. This scenario was generally well animated, but I believe the minor aspects that were missed had the greatest impact on Subaru. Let me clarify. We all know Emilia, Reinhard, and Regulus are strong, so it's no surprise to see them achieve legendary deeds. However, Subaru lacks the same ability, so I was disappointed that they removed the scenes where this loser's feat stood out. In fact, I'm not kidding when I claim that it was Subaru's quick thinking that allowed the good side to continue the war. For example, in the scene where Regulus chases them, Subaru takes charge of the tough situation and asks Emilia to make the ice shoes. However, the anime reveals that this was Emilia's idea. Then it is told that while Emilia was concentrating on attacking Regulus, he nearly caught up to her multiple times. But Subaru used his whip to pull her out of danger before they grabbed onto the streetlight pole seen in the anime. Furthermore, when they were going to be apprehended by the Archbishop, Emilia came up with the idea of creating icicles and throwing them far away, while simultaneously urging Subaru to use his whip to grab the ice object so they could be dragged together. It is also mentioned that Subaru was hesitant to do what Emilia was asking him to do because he lacked confidence in his abilities. But remembering his master and being aware that the girl he cares about had entrusted her life to him was all he needed to be inspired and pull off this feat. Regulus eventually caught up with them after emerging from the water, but there's no denying that the chase sequence in the novel was more exciting than the one in the anime. Then, when Reinhard appears and cuts the tsunami, it's worth noting that he didn't unsheath his sword. Regulus notices this and complains about the redhead's strength, which allows him to use a sword even without unsheathing it. Regulus slashes Reinhard's leg at one point throughout the fight, which I neglected to mention. He assumed that this would be enough to get rid of Reinhard, but it is revealed that the spirits in the area immediately cured him because they were concerned for him. Also, when Reinhard was sent flying and smashed through numerous buildings, Emilia is reported to have attempted to stop him by generating ice walls, but it was insufficient. Later, when Reinhard is in charge of determining whether Regulus's heart is beating, events unfold exactly as depicted in the anime, at least until Subaru and Emilia separate. While the anime just shows Subaru climbing a building and revealing Regulus's weakness, the novel included a complete scenario leading up to that point, and it was truly a shame that it was cut. After Emilia splits from the protagonist, Regulus chases Subaru. Subaru takes his position of stalling very seriously. Regulus leaps at Subaru, who dodges by rolling on the ground before using parkour to climb to the higher stories of the houses. Regulus then wields his power, slicing through every building Subaru enters. As the houses fall, Subaru recalls Klin's teachings and manages to carve a route through the rubble. He keeps going until he is unable to continue, and when it appears like Regulus has finally closed off all of his escape routes, Subaru begins to analyze the Archbishop's facial expressions to determine his ability. Only then does he reveal what we saw in the anime about his weakness. As you can see, the protagonist's scene with Regulus was both spectacular and mistreated. I understand that the anime does what it can, but the purpose of these videos is to highlight and remark on what has to be left out. But now let us go on to this week's break time. To be honest, I didn't anticipate them to adapt this secondary story, let alone add fresh lines and scenes to it. In the original story, we didn't see Capella or Lay. Instead, we heard Regulus speak. In reality, there is a scene in which Regulus sees one of his wives in distress and becomes enraged, killing her at that very moment during the conversation. But if you thought that was a disturbing scene, you're mistaken. A portion of this story is not directly stated, although it is implied that Sirius suddenly begins to devour the remnants of Betelgeuse's body. As you can see, there are many dark things in this original story, and that is why I imagine that the staff decided to create new dialogues and situations that were originally not included in order to extend the break time. Overall, I think it was a good secondary story, and although the adaptation was not faithful, I liked it. But tell me, what did you think of episode 10 of the 3rd season of Re-Zero?